As Le Figaro, focusing on the French military operation in the Central African Republic, entering a bit of a new phase, isn't it? 400 extra soldiers being deployed.
That's right. It'll bring it to a total of 2,000 French soldiers on the ground. Now, a lot of the papers are focusing on the fact that just 2 months after it began, this military operation looks like it's far from over and is probably going to last a lot longer than it was supposed to. In fact, the president, Catherine Samba-Panza, has asked for French soldiers to stick around until elections in February 2015. So Le Figaro looks today at what are the risks of an extended intervention. And in its editorial, it points out that France was right to intervene. It really had to stop a potential genocide. But the right-wing paper is still very critical of François Hollande and his government for not sending a clear message to French people from the beginning. At the beginning, he was in denial, says Le Figaro, because he presented the operation as just a policing operation that was going to last just for 6 months. And according to Le Figaro, this was obviously bending the truth. Another lie in a string of lies, says Le Figaro, after lies about unemployment, the economy, etc. But this time, the reputation of France, and especially the reputation of the French army, is on the line.
Now, Le Monde, they've taken a bit of a look at the situation, haven't they, on the ground, particularly in the West, where the biggest problems seem to be.
That's right. And Le Monde points out that Muslims in the town of Bouar have to pay for their survival. And it's a very interesting article that takes a closer look at the weaknesses of the French military operation. First of all, there aren't enough troops, deployment is slow, but also the soldiers that are on the ground aren't really using force against people carrying out atrocities or arresting them. But this article points out that one of the major weaknesses of the French military operation, and that one that encourages actually a kind of atmosphere of impunity in the Central African Republic, is that France is insisting that this is a short-term mission. For instance, outside of Bangui, French soldiers will only stay a couple of days in villages before handing things over to African troops. And so according to this article, well, this just encourages warlords to just wait until their time comes.
Let's go back to a story that Stephen was talking about just a second ago. Libération, focusing on the French car maker, Peugeot.
That's right. Libération says that the state has mange du lion. So I guess you could translate that as the state eats lions. So what in the world does that mean? Well, when you eat lions in French, it means that you put a tiger in your tank. And the lion, of course, is the symbol of Peugeot. So ha ha ha, great for Libé for that pun today. But Libé actually is a little bit critical of François Hollande because yesterday he was meeting with foreign business leaders saying France is open to the world, to foreign investment, etc. But here you have the French state that's trying to counterbalance this capital injection from China. Now, the government has been very worried that there'll be some sort of transfer of technology to China, which will one day lead to China to crush France in terms of competition. But Libération plays down these fears today, interviews an American consultant, Craig Anderson, who actually says that for now, China isn't really investing in research, et cetera, to gain the upper hand. And so for now, foreign countries have the upper hand in terms of car construction.
Now, you're feeling hungry. I'm talking to you, the viewer. I am. Don't know if you are. Aujourd'hui en France have a special investigation today about what is on our plate.
That's right. I'm not sure you'll be very hungry after this.
I suspected not.
Aujourd'hui en France looks at food safety and points out that we'd like to be able to eat without fear. Now, it reminds us that just 1 year ago, there was the horse meat scandal. Yeah. And according to Aujourd'hui en France, the problem is that the public funds allocated to sanitary control aren't enough. And since there are all sorts of cuts in public spending, well, these spending are also getting cut. Now, one problem is that there aren't enough food inspectors, and this might gross you out a little bit. In France, there are only 43 food inspectors for roughly 110,000 canteens, wow, whether they're in schools, here at France 24, retirement homes, etc. That means one food inspector for every 2,500 canteens. So
wow,
doesn't seem like enough.
Not
Pretty
that
gross.
much. Not that much. Glad to put you off your breakfast or your lunch or your evening meal, depending where you are in the world. Finally, something serious now. Le Croix focusing on the scandal of Réunion stolen children.
That's right. Now, this is it's seen as a very dark chapter of French history. And the National Assembly is actually examining a text that would recognize France's moral responsibility in this case of stolen children. So what is this all about? Well, this was a transfer of minors from the island of Réunion to France between 1963 and 1982. So these are young kids we're talking about who were taken away from their families. Now, according to La Croix, originally this was a government program where families in Reunion were promised that their children would visit Paris, would be educated, etc. But this was a program to repopulate rural areas of France, especially an area called La Creuse. So, as I said, a total of 1,630 children we're talking about here. And according to La Croix, this is a really dark chapter of our history that we have to address today.
Okay, big scandal. You can read about it in Le Croix. Coming up, the very latest news here on France 24 coming out of Thailand with the shooting dead of a police officer there. And in focus, as the government decides its next move after a mass taxi strike here in Paris, chaos over the difference between a lighter regulated minicab and a proper taxi. We'll report in focus.